Well, welcome back, everyone. This is episode number 2 of the StuG IV build. See, 2 plus 4, so this is no, just kidding. And a special thank you to all of those who commented as to the location of the StuG, the photograph, the reference photograph. We have placed this now in Italy, so our scene will be an Italian countryside sort of scene as we get moving into that step. But for now,
This is the kind of thing that stirs the blood. Customers don't know what to believe.
yeah, that's unfortunately the case this past week or week and a half. I have been wrestling with this model, well, specifically wrestling with the paintwork, and we'll document that all here because that's what I do. This is real life modeling with real life struggles, real life mistakes. So the construction went great. Here's our first coat of primer. This little photo montage here at the beginning will kind of show the steps along the way, and then we'll go into actually doing the detailing and showing how where I went wrong or exactly what happened. Base layer color, everything's going fine here. So I started out with a camouflage pattern that was going to be one of these kind of wavy pattern sort of deal. Laid that on. I just decided it was too busy. I didn't want to go this route. It was going to be too tough for weather, and I actually got quite a ways through it. So I repainted and ended up with more of this blotchy type camo. And then I repainted it again in terms of all the tools and things. So you'll see that I actually did a lot of the accessory painting and then come back in and then repaint it all again. Have to redo the tools. It's, like I said, I've been wrestling with it. And even at this final stage, I've kind of made some alterations to the base colors and the camouflage. So let's get to painting. Let's start the struggle. Everything starts with a base layer of Mr. Surfacer Primer. That's my go-to. I love the way it covers and how paint adheres to it. Dunkelgelb, I'll put the colors up, flash them across the screen here that I'm using, but this Dunkelgelb color just as my base coat. Even at this moment, I'm thinking I might be off to the wrong track. It's a little too dark for my taste. So I'll end up lightening this up a little bit along the way, even in this first iteration or this first go-around try at the camouflage. But more of that as we move along here. So it's quite obvious now that I've lightened up the base color, and I did that with just adding some white gray to the mix. Now we'll do the olive green little squiggle lines here. And this is where, I have a concept in my head. Quite frankly, the first mistake here is that the pattern is too dark, so it should be more faded out, so that way the busy nature of it, the kind of confused nature of the camouflage would have been less pronounced. But I pressed ahead anyway, and I should have stopped and adjusted the colors at this point. Regardless, pressing on, now we'll add the red-brown color, and as you can see, it's starting to get really busy. Visually, it's very busy, and at this stage, I'm starting to think to myself, as I start getting into painting the details, the accessories, the tools, and then going into weathering, this is going to be very, very difficult. Nothing's going to really show up. It's just going to be a big mess of colors. However, I continue on, and I'm just certain I can wrestle this into shape, no matter how far down the wrong road I feel like I'm going at this point in time. And so with my busy camouflage pattern, I need to tone it down. This is a trick I use quite often. I think I've demonstrated this before. Acrylic colors, so this is basically pale sand, and just a very light, I guess you would call this a filter, highly, highly thin. It's nothing much more than dirty water. Work very quickly so you don't have those tide marks. Apply some of the color, feather out the edges, and let it dry. And it just basically harmonizes all the colors and tones it down. I think that you can see that wash with the light pale sand color has done a nice job of lightening and unifying the finish and given even a faded effect to the camouflage pattern. I'm committed to this pattern at this point, adding the decals, painting out all the accessory items, the tools, and things like that. And looking back right now at this video as I'm doing the narrative over the top of it, I'm thinking, maybe I should have stayed with this pattern because it's actually fairly attractive. If you like this channel and would like to show some support, I do have a Patreon page, and the link for that is in the description below. You can see my members scrolling across the screen as I speak. Thank you guys. As Patreon, you receive early viewing of these videos, special purpose Patreon videos, photographs of ongoing projects, a Discord server. Please consider joining and supporting the propaganda channel. So that commitment to this is real, and I even started down the path of weathering, trying to get this all into shape as I normally would. But I think from this view, you can really start to see how busy that pattern is and how ineffective, in essence, the weathering is. There's just so much going on to the eye that it's very hard to make any sort of distinction, and it's just looking like a cluttered mess, in my opinion. And so what to do? Well, in this wrestling analogy, I tapped out, and I'm going to change my camouflage pattern. So I repainted the base color. In this case, I just used a rattle can. It's from AK. It's this Dunkelgelb. It's actually an enamel layer. My frustration and impatience levels at this point are quite high, and even right now, especially in retrospect, I'm going like, geez, you know, that base color is not quite right. Again, it's a little on the dark side and the too much yellow into it, but it's probably accurate. But I want that faded effect a little bit more. But I'm pressing on because, again, I'm stubborn and I just do this. As you can see now, these are going to be more of the blotchy camouflage patterns. I want more room, more space for the weathering effects to be able to show through. Which now brings us to basically the second camouflage pattern. There will be a slight adjustment to this one as well in a little bit, but it'll be not very significant. Like I said, it's a little too vibrant for me right now. I'd like to tone this down a bit. So we'll once again turn to that filter using the acrylic colors. Again, using the light sand color. And again, it's just oh so thin of layers. Just kissing the surface and then pulling it off. If this is an idea that you'd like to try for yourself, especially in the beginning, you might add some paint retarder to your mix. That will just extend the drying time for a little bit. Makes it a little easier to help prevent those tide marks around the edges. But overall, the key is, again, a very light wash of color. Apply it to the surface, a very small area of surface that you can work on. And then as you remove the paint, and this is almost half the trick, you're removing the paint almost as quickly as you put it on. So I'll pull the brush back, dry out the brush on a paper towel, and put almost a nearly dry brush back onto the area, and it wicks off all the excess, and then I just feather out all those edges to remove, like again, to prevent those tide marks. So now we're back to round 2 of the accessories. So this is why I didn't get very far in this episode, because I basically painted the tank almost to the entirety twice here. So like I said, it was a wrestling match, and I'm not sure why. But sometimes they're just like this, and you just kind of have to roll with the punches. Well, this exhausting wrestling match, jeez, I tell you what. So I needed to do something. I felt like I was making some progress, so I just decided, let's go ahead and paint out the muffler. Actually, a very simple and basic paint job, just adding some texture to the surfaces. Generally with the sponge method, just kind of gives that kind of mottled, muffler type effect. And then I'll come back in with the brush, add a few details here and there, but more generally, these are just going to be light washes of color, just kind of allow those acrylic colors to, once again, harmonize and unify the surfaces. So kind of continuing the idea of the weathering on the FJ43, and if you recall, on the FJ43, I really pushed the idea of using the acrylic paints to do the weathering, as opposed to using enamels or oils. And I like the idea of that a lot, and so I wanted to try it again and see if I could push that idea on this model as well and see what sort of results I might get. My impression overall is that this is a very valid technique and can be applied, and certainly an entire model could be weathered using the acrylic paints in this manner. Certainly it lays a very nice foundation, because I will come back with oil paints, and now I have a very nice foundation to add the oil colors over the top. My method for application is very similar to using oil paints. I do have retarder into the acrylic paint mix, so I have a little extended drying time, but I'll just add some color to the surface, and then with a clean brush, I'll just feather it back a little bit. So again, very similar to how I use oil paints, and just start building up those layers. And you can see we're starting to get some nice contrast and dust effects around some of these surface details. Now, I do turn to oil paints here fairly quickly, and one primary reason is, if you noticed in those prior video clips, especially on the engine deck, you can definitely notice a chalky appearance, and that's from that wash that we did with the acrylics right at the initial stages, just to kind of unify the surface. But it did really desaturate the colors, and like I said, left almost a chalky appearance. The oil paints are going to be great in order to bring back some of the vibrancy and saturation to those colors. Well, like I said, this has been quite the wrestling match to get the model even to this point here, and I'm much more comfortable right now. I've stopped trying to do some fancy things, trying to acrylic weathering. I decided, I need to step back. This model's fighting me enough. I don't need to be trying some new techniques or something out of my comfort zone right now, because, like I said, for whatever reason, it's just not going as smoothly as I hope. If there is one underappreciated benefit of using oil paints, is that they can make super nice chips and little rust marks and things like that. So if you load the brush with fairly thick paint and you get one of those or two of those little bristles at the tip of your brush that's kind of poking out, and just lightly tap the surface, you can get the most fine, just delicate little scratches and nicks and chips and things like that. And that's one of the this is the part I totally enjoy this part right now. And again, I'm back in my comfort zone, and I'm feeling much better about the way this model's starting to shape up. And then even at this late stage, what's this, round 4 of our wrestling match, I make a few extra adjustments here to the camouflage and the base colors. This time just using acrylics in very limited manner. You'll notice it on the top of the gun, on the engine deck a little bit. I just tightened up or changed a little bit of the camouflage patterns, just ever so slightly, just give it a little bit more breathing room there. And then I just come back once again and start doing the oil paints and just kind of touching up some of those areas that I might have oversprayed. I am feeling better about this model now. So I feel like the balance is there. I've got the right camouflage colors. I got the more or less the proper camouflage pattern. Things are starting to breathe a little bit more. So it's much more comfortable. So I think I'm going to win the match. I might have lost a few rounds here, but I think I'm going to win the match. So that's the good part. The not so good part is this is as far along as I have right now, so we're going to have to conclude this episode. So we'll pick it up from here in the next, and we have a lot of things to do, of course, with this entire series, including the figures, the vignette, and finishing up the model here. So if you do like this episode, please hit that like and subscribe. If you like this channel, I do have a Patreon page if you'd like to show your support over there. I doubt that this is the episode you expected to see. You didn't expect to see me just kind of fumbling around for, what's it been, about 15 minutes here on film. But that's the way it goes sometimes, guys. We don't always hit it out of the park on the first try. Again, I've lost a few rounds, but I think I'm going to win the match here. So thanks, guys, for watching along. We'll see you in the next one. And, of course, happy modeling and take care. Talk to you soon.